materialized from the depths. A sleek, massive great white shark with rows of razor-sharp teeth glinting in the pale moonlight. It circled around her, a predator sizing its prey with cold, calculating eyes. Diana's heart pounded with terror as she struggled to propel herself towards the yacht, her limbs flailing wildly in the inky depths. But her desperate bid for survival was thwarted by the sinewy shadow that streaked towards her with deadly speed. The great white shark surged closer to the life buoy thrown by her friends, and as it was almost within reach, the shark launched another attack from the bottom of the sea, devouring the lower half of Diana's body. The attack was so sudden and powerful that the shark sprang out of the water with Diana in its mouth. The upper half of her lifeless body, from her torso to her head, was visible as the crew saw the terror on Diana's face. Then, as suddenly as it had attacked, the shark made a massive splash as it returned to the water, dragging Diana to the depths of the sea. And suddenly, a deafening silence engulfed the sea. All that was left was a pool of blood, and set out, the bright sun sparkled on the tranquil water, luring them in with its gentle waves. With their hearts racing and adrenaline pumping, they were ready to uncover the mysteries of the powerful and mysterious sharks that prowled these waters. Every detail of their gear had been meticulously checked and double-checked to ensure their safety, and they were eager to put it to the test. Their eyes locked onto the deep blue sea, searching for any signs of their elusive prey. As they drifted further and further from the safety of the shore, a sense of unease crept over them. They knew the dangers of the deep, but their excitement overpowered any fear. They tried to tag as many sharks as possible, and nothing would stand in their way. As they submerged themselves into the cool, clear water, Sarah's heart pounded excitedly as she spotted that magnificent oceanic white-tipped shark gliding effortlessly through the depths. With a flick of its powerful tail, it disappeared into the blue expanse before them. Without hesitation, Sarah signaled Jake to follow, but Jake signaled Sarah to stop the pursuit. Jake felt unease emanating from the shark's erratic behavior. Jake thought Sarah obliged his instruction to return to the boat, but Sarah was determined to get closer to the shark. The shark's sleek body glistened in the sun's rays, and Sarah was entranced by its deadly grace. The closer she got, the more she could feel the primal energy emanating from the predator. Jake frantically waved his arms, signaling Sarah to return to the boat's safety. But Sarah was entranced by the shark's hypnotic movements, lost in the wild beauty of the predator. Her fascination with the creature proved to be a fatal mistake. The shark launched toward Sarah with lightning-fast speed, its jaws gaping wide. Before she could scream, the predator clamped down hard on her leg, yanking her beneath the water's surface. The force of the bite was like nothing Sarah had ever experienced before. The shark's teeth sliced through her wetsuit, and she could feel the piercing pain in her leg, signaling the beginning of a terrifying fight for survival. As the water grew murky and dark, Sarah struggled to break free from the powerful grip of the shark's jaws. But the predator was too strong, its hold unrelenting. It dragged her deeper and deeper into the abyss, and Sarah knew that her chances of survival were slim at best. Her heart racing, her lungs burning, she fought with all of her might against the relentless force that threatened to claim her life. Jake saw the horrifying scene take place before his eyes. He knew he had to act fast if he intended to save Sarah. Jake's heart pounded with fear and adrenaline as he swam closer to the attack scene. The water was murky and filled with bubbles, making it difficult to see what was happening. He could hear Sarah's muffled screams and knew that time was running out. He pushed himself harder, his arms and legs pumping with all the strength he could muster. As he got closer, he saw the full horror of the situation. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were dug deep into Sarah's mangled leg, and blood was gushing like a river. She fought with all her might, but the predator's grip was too strong. Jake knew he had to act fast, or Sarah would be lost forever. Without hesitation, he lunged at the shark, grabbing its dorsal fin with all his might. The shark thrashed and jerked, trying to shake Jake off, but he held tight. He could feel the immense power of the predator beneath him, and his heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to keep his grip. Finally, with a burst of strength, Jake hit the shark's snout, shocking it with a jolt of pain, forcing its mouth open and freeing Sarah's leg. The shark recoiled and temporarily retreated to the depths of the sea. Jake and Sarah took this opportunity and immediately approached the waiting boat, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. Sarah's leg was gruesome, blood gushing out from the wound and staining the water around them. With every move, Sarah could feel the pain throbbing through her entire body, making lifting her leg hard. But Jake knew he couldn't waste any time. He quickly took out his first aid kit and tied a tourniquet tightly around Sarah's leg, hoping to stem the bleeding. The tension in the air was palpable as the shark continued to circle the boat, waiting for its chance to attack again. Every breath was a struggle, and Sarah could feel her heart pounding against her chest as she struggled to stay conscious. The sound of the shark's fins slicing through the water sent shivers down their spines, and they knew they had to act quickly to return. Bright and vivid fish raced past her in flashes of neon, their scales gleaming in the sun's warm rays. In mesmerizing patterns, schools of silver fish swirled around her, as if in a trance, like a rhythmic and hypnotic dance. The beauty of the underwater world faded as Lisa's eyes fixated on a looming figure in the distance. It seemed to be emerging from the shadows of the murky depths, revealing its massive size. Her heart pounded in her chest as her breaths came in short, panicked gasps as she recognized the predator in front of her. A sense of dread washed over her as she could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. It was a tiger shark, easily measuring over 20 feet long, and its sleek body moved blood into the ocean. Lisa felt her consciousness slipping away as the pain became too much to bear. Her vision blurred, and she struggled to stay awake, but eventually succumbed to the darkness. The guide's heart raced with adrenaline as he saw Lisa's body sinking rapidly into the abyss. With a burst of energy, he kicked his way towards her, determined to save her. But as he reached her, a sudden chill ran down his spine. From the murky depths emerged the same tiger shark, its massive jaws wide open, ready to strike again. The guide's heart pounded in his chest as he watched in horror as the shark bit off Lisa's other leg in a single swift motion. The guide's blood ran cold as he watched in horror as the massive tiger shark ripped off Lisa's limbs one after another, leaving her helpless and mutilated in its wake. He was frozen in fear, unable to process what was happening before his very eyes. The shark's powerful jaws snapped and tore at her flesh, its razor-sharp teeth sinking deep into her body, causing blood to cloud the water. As Lisa's body was being torn apart, the guide felt the sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach, knowing that he had failed to protect her. His mind raced with thoughts of what he could have done differently, but it was too late. The shark, having taken its fill, grabbed Lisa's lifeless carcass and dragged it down to the murky depths of the ocean. Cool. They couldn't wait. He knew he had to act quickly or lose his friend forever. As he closed in on the shark, he could see the gruesome sight that awaited him. Peter's body was limp, his once vibrant figure reduced to a lifeless rag doll, thrashing helplessly in the beast's merciless jaws. The shark's razor-sharp teeth easily tore through flesh, leaving behind a trail of blood and gore. Liam's heart raced with fear and determination as he charged toward the monstrous shark, its imposing figure casting a shadow over the thrashing waters. His pulse pounded in his ears as he approached the deadly predator, his mind racing with thoughts of how he could save his friend. But despite his valiant effort, the shark refused to release its relentless grip on Peter's helpless body. The predator's razor-sharp teeth dug deeper into his flesh, tearing at his limbs and crushing his bones as he writhed in agony. Liam could only watch in horror as the shark thrashed violently, pummeling Peter's limp form into submission. The once tranquil sea now resembled a gruesome scene from a horror movie, as the water boiled and churned with a deep shade of red, the thick liquid a dreadful mixture of blood and salt water. The ghastly display was too much for Liam to bear as he gazed in horror at the gory spectacle before him. The shark's massive jaws clamped tightly around Peter's body, and with each violent thrash, the creature seemed to be gaining more and more control over its prey. The sheer force of the shark's movement was enough to snap bones and tear flesh, and Liam could only watch in despair as his friend's mangled body was pummeled into submission. Despite his best efforts, Liam knew that time was quickly slipping away, and he was filled with a sense of helplessness and desperation. With a heavy heart and a sense of defeat, Liam turned his back to the shark and swam towards the shore. The weight of his friend's absence felt like a boulder on his chest, and tears streamed down his face as he struggled to come to terms with the tragedy that had just unfolded. Onlookers who had witnessed the horrific attack stared in disbelief as Liam emerged from the water, his body heaving with sobs. The scene was chaotic, with people shouting and running towards Liam to offer their support. But no words could comfort him. All he could think of was his friend's fate in the unforgiving jaws of the shark. As he collapsed on the sand, sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the arrival of police divers and the Coast Guard. The search mission was urgently launched, and the water became a frenzied activity as rescue teams scoured the depths for any signs of Peter. But despite their concerted efforts, the sea refused to yield any clues to the missing diver's whereabouts. It was as if the ocean had claimed Peter and would not give up without a fight. Days turned into weeks, and the search continued to no avail. The community was left reeling with shock and grief, and the memory of the bustling crowd slowly faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of the sea and the warm sun on his skin. Lionel was peacefully drifting on his skiff, the gentle waves lulling him into a sense of calm. The sun was high in the sky, casting a warm glow on the water's glittering surface. But then, a fin appeared in the distance, slicing through the waves with an ominous determination. Lionel's heart began to race as he watched the fin grow closer and closer, until he realized with a sickening jolt that it was heading straight for his skiff. As the fin drew nearer, Lionel could see that it belonged to a massive shark, its sleek body cutting through the water with terrifying speed. The shark seemed to be in hot pursuit of a fish, but it was headed straight for Lionel's boat. Panic seized him as he tried remembering what he had heard about surviving a shark attack. But before he could react, the shark slammed into the side of his skiff with tremendous force, shattering it into splinters and sending Lionel flying into the water. As Lionel desperately swam towards the surface of the water, he felt his heart pounding with fear. He knew he needed to escape the water quickly before the shark caught up. Suddenly, he saw a massive 17-foot bull shark, its sleek form slicing through the water with deadly grace. The shark had abandoned its earlier prey and turned its attention to the man now thrashing in the water. Lionel's body went cold with terror as he realized he was the shark's next target. Breaking the surface of the water, Lionel gasped for air and frantically scanned the water for the shark. In the distance, he saw the ominous fin slowly piercing the water's surface once more, now moving more cautiously but with a clear intent to attack. The shark's fin began to circle him, taunting him with its slow, menacing movements. With lightning speed, the bull shark lunged towards Lionel, its razor-sharp teeth bared and ready to strike. It clamped down on Lionel's pelvis and legs in one brutal and merciless move, sending shock waves of excruciating pain throughout his body. Lionel's screams of agony pierced the otherwise serene waters, a haunting melody of terror and despair. The shark's ferocious bite tore through Lionel's flesh, shredding muscle and sinew. Its powerful jaws crushed Lionel's pelvic bone, reducing it to brittle fragments that floated ominously in the water. Lionel felt like he was being devoured alive by an insatiable monster. Fueled by adrenaline and an unbreakable will to survive, Lionel's fists flew towards the shark's head, one after the other, in a desperate attempt to break free. But the shark was relentless, its grip unyielding, as it thrashed back and forth in the water, shaking Lionel like a rag doll. As the struggle continued, Lionel's once strong and agile body was reduced to a mangled, blood-soaked mess, his pelvis and legs shredded beyond recognition. The water around him turned into a dark and murky red, the blood of his wounds mixing with the ocean's brine. Lionel's body ached with pain as he fought for his life in the clutches of the monstrous bull shark. His vision started to blur, and his thoughts began to fade into the abyss of his mind. However, Lionel's primal will to survive overpowered his fear, and he mustered every ounce of strength he had left to fight back. With a sudden surge of desperation, Lionel began to gouge the shark's gills with all his might, holding on for dear life as the predator recoiled in pain. Lionel's fingers dug into the shark's flesh, feeling the rough texture of its skin against his skin, and he knew that his survival depended on it. Lionel persisted, and after a few more minutes of unrelenting struggle, the shark finally loosened its grip on his pelvis. Lionel seized the opportunity and delivered a swift punch to the shark's snout, followed by a powerful kick to its body with his other foot. The shark, stunned by Lionel's sudden counterattack, retreated back into the depths of the water, leaving Lionel floating alone, battered and wounded, but alive. Lionel's body felt on fire as he clung onto the few pieces of debris floating in the water. He was surrounded by crimson clouds of blood, his own and the shark's, that seemed to cling to his body like a second skin. He could feel the sharp pain shooting up his legs, making moving difficult. But he knew he had to make it to the shore. As he paddled with all his might, his eyes scanned the water, still afraid the shark might return for another round. Eventually, he made it to the shore where a group of locals and tourists were gathered, watching with bated breath as Lionel pulled himself onto the sand. He sighed in relief, knowing that he had made it out alive. Waters and weather to capture stunning footage that left viewers spellbound. Behind the camera, Matthew and Gina were not only colleagues, but also lifelong best friends, with a deep respect for the ocean and its inhabitants. That's why when their YouTube channel hit 1 million subscribers, Matthew and Gina were over the moon. They had come a long way since starting their wildlife documentaries together and wanted to celebrate with their loyal viewers. To show their gratitude, they decided to let their followers choose the topic for their next documentary. They set up a poll and asked viewers to vote for the wildlife they wanted to see next. The poll results were in, and the winner was the bull sharks of the Zambezi River in Mozambique. The duo packed their bags and headed to Mozambique, where they met up with their local guide, who would take them to the best spots to film the bull sharks. They spent several days on the river, getting up early in the morning to catch the sharks feeding, and staying out late at night to capture their nocturnal habits. The 3 days of the shoot had been nothing short of amazing. Matthew and Gina had captured some incredible footage of the bull sharks in the Zambezi River, showcasing their strength, speed, and grace. But there was something that had been nagging at Matthew ever since they arrived. Despite bull sharks being known to be solitary hunters, many of the sharks they observed were hunting in groups, coordinating their attacks and sharing their prey. This was an unusual phenomenon, and Matthew couldn't help but wonder why this was happening. As he pondered this mystery, Gina simply shrugged it off, saying that it was just a coincidence. But Matthew knew there was more to it than that. He could sense it in the way the sharks moved, the way they communicated with each other, and the way they worked together to take down their prey. On the 4th day of their expedition along the river, while Gina and Matthew were busy filming at the mouth of the river, Gina's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of a bull shark going about its hunting routine, unperturbed by their presence. Gina signaled Matthew to join her in getting a better shot of the magnificent creature, but he urged her to leave the shark alone and exit the water. Gina, entranced by the shark's sleek movements, ignored his warnings and persisted in tracking the predator, unaware of the lurking danger nearby. Only when it was too late did she realize she had become the target of another apex predator. Dread washed over Gina as she faced a colossal 13-foot bull shark with lifeless eyes, realizing she was the hunted, not the hunter. Time stood still as she grappled with shock, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to make sense of the situation. With lightning speed, The bull shark lunged at Gina, sinking its teeth into her neck. The sheer force of the attack was overwhelming, and Gina felt the crunch of bones as the shark's serrated teeth tore through her flesh. Blood gushed out of her carotid arteries, staining the once murky waters a horrifying shade of crimson red. Gina's body went into shock as she desperately tried to fend off the relentless predator, but her strength faded quickly. The pain in her grievous wound was unbearable, and the shark's thrashing only worsened the damage. Gina could feel her life draining away, her vision growing hazy as the world around her blurred into darkness. It was a harrowing and tragic end to what was supposed to be an ordinary day of filming. Matthew stood frozen in terror as he watched the horrific scene unfold before him. He couldn't move, couldn't bring himself to intervene as the bull shark continued to maul his best friend Gina to death. The sight was gut-wrenching, and Matthew felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. But the horror didn't end there. To Matthew's horror, he saw other bull sharks converging on the gruesome scene. They were drawn by the scent of blood in the water, and they were closing in fast. Matthew realized with a sinking feeling that Gina's brutal fate was not over yet. One particularly large bull shark, measured around 10 feet in length, charged towards Gina and bit her leg clean off her body. The shark swiftly grabbed its prize and disappeared into the depths of the water, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. The other bull sharks wasted no time in joining the feeding frenzy. They tore into Gina's lifeless, mangled body, ripping off her arms, legs, and head with vicious ferocity. The water turned a sickening shade of red as Gina's blood mixed with the surrounding currents. Matthew could hardly believe what he was witnessing. Within moments, nothing was left of Gina. Her body had been reduced to a gory mess, device of responsibility to protect and preserve these fragile ecosystems for future generations. As Mary descended further into the depths of the reef, she marveled at the sheer size of some of the coral formations. They were unlike anything she'd ever seen before, and she eagerly began documenting her findings. She swam gracefully, her movements fluid and precise, as she observed the intricate symbiotic relationships between the corals and the myriad of marine life that called this reef home. As Mary focused her gaze on the majestic coral formation, a sense of calm and wonder enveloped her. She marveled at its intricate patterns and vivid colors, feeling like she'd uncovered a hidden treasure in the depths of the sea. But then something changed. A prickling sensation crawled up her spine, making her turn around abruptly. Her eyes widened in horror as she spotted a massive, ominous figure emerging from the shadows. Its body was massive, its movements deliberate and calculated. Mary's heart raced as she realized that she was face to face with one of the ocean's greatest predators. The creature's cold, unblinking eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Mary was frozen with fear. As Mary's eyes adjusted to the shadowy figure, a wave of fear washed over her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she recognized the unmistakable shape of a 13-foot tiger shark, a predator that could easily overpower her with its muscular body and razor-sharp teeth. The water around her seemed to grow colder as the shark circled her, its menacing gaze never leaving her vulnerable form. Mary's muscles tensed as she remembered her extensive training, knowing that every second counted in this deadly game of survival. With trembling hands, she reached for the knife strapped to her thigh, her fingers fumbling for a moment before finally closing around the hilt. She held the weapon tightly, ready to strike at a moment's notice, her eyes scanning the dark waters for any signs of the shark's next move. The tension was palpable as she waited for the inevitable attack, her heart racing with the knowledge that her life was in mortal danger. The tiger shark surged towards Mary with astonishing speed, its massive jaws opening wide, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth. She reacted with lightning reflexes, slashing at the shark with her knife, aiming for its sides in a desperate attempt to fend off the imminent attack. But the predator seemed relentless, undeterred by her efforts. Its powerful muscles propelled it forward, and in a split second, Mary felt searing pain as the shark's jaws closed around her right arm. She screamed, her mind reeling in shock as she watched in horror as her limb was torn off in a brutal bone-crunching snap. Blood clouded the water, and Mary's body convulsed in agony as she struggled to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before her. Mary's mind raced as she fought to stay calm. She knew she had to get to the surface and get help, but the shark was relentless. It circled her, its cold eyes fixed on her remaining limbs. With all her strength, Mary tried to swim towards the surface, but the shark was faster. It lunged at her, latching on to one of her legs. Mary kicked with all her might, using her free leg to try and fend off the shark, but it was too powerful. It thrashed and ragdolled her under the water, the surrounding water turning dark red with her blood and pieces of flesh from the brutal attack. Mary's screams were muffled by the water as she fought for her life, but the shark was relentless. With one loud crunch, the shark bit off Mary's leg, leaving her defenseless and fading fast. She felt the pain and despair wash over her as she struggled to stay conscious. The shark circled her once more before it lunged at her, this time going for her neck and head. Mary felt the unbearable pain as her flesh ripped apart, and then everything went dark. Days passed, and reports of Mary's disappearance surfaced. The authorities searched the area, but no body was found. The news assumed that she was devoured by sharks frequenting the area. Mary's family was devastated by the news, and they mourned her loss. The incident turned crimson with blood, a stark and chilling reminder of the perilous situation. The crew's hearts pounded with fear as they watched their comrade Tony struggle in the jaws of the great white shark. Without a moment's hesitation, Harvey and the other crew members sprang into action, diving into the water and racing to Tony's rescue. The water was murky, and the shark's movements were unpredictable, making the situation all the more dangerous. As they drew closer, they could hear Tony's desperate thrashing as he fought for his life. Harvey and the crew felt a mix of emotions, fear, determination, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility to protect their friend. Adrenaline was pumping through their veins as they approached the terrifying predator. The crew's spear guns were their weapons of choice, and they wielded them with skill and precision. As they closed in on the shark, Harvey and his crew members started firing their spears with lines attached to the boat. One spear managed to latch onto the belly of the great white, but it didn't seem to be enough to stop the ferocious predator. Harvey knew that they needed to act fast and decisively to save Tony's life. With no regard for his own safety, he boldly approached the shark, brandishing his knife. The shark lunged towards him, its massive jaws gaping open, ready to strike. Harvey, undeterred, jabbed at the shark repeatedly, aiming for its sensitive nose. The shark thrashed and writhed, lashing out at Harvey with its razor-sharp teeth. But Harvey was relentless, continuing to stab the shark until it finally succumbed to its injuries and went limp. The crew watched in awe as the once terrifying predator floated lifelessly in the water, defeated by their courage and skill. With the shark no longer a threat, the crew turned their attention to Tony, who was battered and bruised, but alive. They pulled him to safety, relieved and grateful that they had been able to rescue him from the jaws of death. But Harvey and his crew knew their work was not done yet. They needed to understand why this particular shark had been attacking beachgoers, and if it had done so before. With determination in their eyes, the crew hauled the lifeless shark onto the beach, its massive body leaving a trail in the sand. They began to examine the shark, carefully slicing it open to reveal its insides. As they made their way through the layers of skin and muscle, a putrid smell emanated from the belly of the beast. Without warning, a concoction of viscous fluid spilled forth from the shark's stomach, causing the crew to recoil in shock and disgust as the decapitated head of the missing person rolled out into the sand. The realization that the man's body had been consumed by the enormous predator left the crew stunned and appalled. Recognizing the significance of this discovery, the team knew they had to press on with their examination, aware that there could be further clues lurking within the shark's belly. With steady hands and a sense of grim determination, Harvey and his crew continued the examination. They retrieved other body parts of humans from the shark's stomach, confirming their worst fears that this particular shark had been responsible